Listen up, people. That's right. It's time to listen to the sparks of bliss in your life. I'm your host and life coach, Caroline de Posada from Miami, Florida. And this podcast is an invitation to join me in upgrading our mindset, wellness, and relationships so that together we create a life that unlocks our bliss. Join me each week as we explore practical strategies, inspiring stories, and the moments of clarity, or as we like to call them, los momenticos, that make the world a little more magical. Consider this your weekly dose of wisdom in your pocket. Are you ready? Let's do this. Hey, Bliss'ners, welcome to episode number 47 of Bliss'n Up. So if you notice my voice is a little different today, it's because I've been battling this little cold. It's not a big deal, like I'm not super sick, but this cold has been very annoying in my life. And I was describing this cold to my husband and some of my clients. And the best way for me to describe it, is, have you ever had an ex-boyfriend or somebody that you've dated that is like you don't want to date this person anymore? You know that this is not the right boyfriend for you or that right person for you, but somehow he keeps lingering. He's lingering. And he doesn't go away. And then you feel like you're making better choices, you are having better boundaries, you're being very intentional about not like being exposed to this person because you know he's not right for you. And then somehow, I don't know how it happens, you guys end up together again and you don't even realize how it happened. And you're like, how did this happen? How did I end up here again? Now you have to go through the process of breaking up with him all over again because you knew he wasn't the right one for you from the very beginning. But somehow you got swept into this situation, maybe a little bit unintentionally or just like it just happened. And here you are. And now you're dealing with it all over again. Well, that is exactly how I feel about this cold. I've taken my supplements. I've been exercising. My kids got sick, so I knew it could come, but I've been taking precautions. I've been taking measures. And then that's kind of like the tricky part is when you take supplements and you exercise and you're healthy, you can ward off the cold a little longer, but then it's almost like a flirting situation where that's what I mean about the lingering. He kind of hangs out, but he doesn't actually get through. And then somehow, I don't know how it happened, the cold came through. It invaded me. I got the cold. And it's not terrible. I've been sicker before in my life, but I'm just annoyed because I'm like, I know he's not the right one for me. I know I'm not supposed to have this cold. Like, go away so that I can move on with my life and do the things I'm supposed to do in this world. So that's been my little frustration. I was at dinner with my husband and he says, I've seen you sicker before, but I've never seen you quite as annoyed with a cold as you are with this one. And I was like, I know, because I really feel that I had him. Like I really felt like I had made all the right choices and that I wasn't going to get sick. I thought I had it beat, and then it surprised me. And I think that's why I was so annoyed by it. I'm better now. I'm less annoyed now because now I'm going back and saying, okay, I'm going to connect the dots. I'm going to look for the lessons. So now I'm a little less annoyed. But in the moment, it was very frustrating, to be honest with you. But I will say this. Something I did learn from this experience, because there's always a lesson here somewhere. Sometimes you do everything right. You do everything you're supposed to do, and things still don't work out the way that you wanted them to work out. And that's okay. This cold is a really good example. Like I'm a pretty healthy person. I exercise, I eat well. I went and I did cryotherapy last week. I did red light therapy. I did sauna. Like I did all the things I was supposed to do. And really, theoretically, I shouldn't have gotten sick, but I did. I did anyway. And that always reminds me of what my dear friend, Dr. Sanchez, always tells me. Whenever these things happen, it is a reminder that we don't have all the answers. We don't have all the answers. We do the best we can with what we know at the time we do it. That's it. That's all we have. But we don't know. Maybe something in my immune system was compromised. Maybe I was lacking some sort of supplement and I was taking another supplement. Like, who knows, right? So sometimes when this something like that happens, then people will use that as a reason to not do what they're supposed to do, right? Like, oh, I shouldn't eat healthy because I could get cancer anyway. Or they'll use me as a reason, like, look, you're healthy and you got sick. That's why I want to live my life and just enjoy myself because you're going to get sick anyway. And I get it. I get why somebody would say something like that. But the truth is that our life is significantly better when we are proactive about being healthy, about aiming for wellness, about taking the right supplements, doing the things that we're supposed to be doing. And sometimes we still get beat. Sometimes we still, go down, and we don't always have all the answers, and that's okay. And that is life, but it is still worth giving it your best shot. And even in a relationship, when you are going all in and you're trying this new relationship out, even if it doesn't work out at the end, that doesn't mean that you should stop trying to find the right person. It doesn't mean that you should give up on relationships altogether. No, we don't always have all the answers, but there's so much magic in the journey. So you keep going. Okay. As for today's episode, last week I talked about the power of magnetizing, how you become more magnetic, and the difference between magnetizing and manifesting, which hopefully you listened to. It was a great episode. And really the whole point of the episode was about becoming the kind of person that attracts the life that you want to live, right? So you have certain dreams and desires, and you want to manifest those dreams and desires. Well, how do you apply certain principles to become a magnetic person that attracts those things? But then today, I want to flip the script and shift your perspective a little bit. I was thinking about, well, there's certain times in our lives when things magnetize us. So last week, we focused on what we want to attract, but what about when life attracts things to us, right? Sometimes we don't even know where the desire comes from or where the calling comes from. It's like something is pulling us in a certain direction and we don't know why. And I thought that was like a really interesting concept to think about. I'll tell you what prompted this. Recently, I've been feeling called to do some things in my business, like up-level my business in a way, and think bigger about my business than I ever have before. And, I'm a solopreneur. So I'm a life coach. I have this podcast. I'm a writer. I'm a speaker. It's just me. It's just me. But lately, I've been feeling called that the business is supposed to be bigger than me. And I don't know exactly what that looks like or how that's going to play out, but I've been having these downloads, like this information. And to be honest with you, it's not necessarily what I want, because I like the freedom and the flexibility of just being me. I have loved my life and my business the way that it is up until now. I've loved it. It has served me well. I have created and designed a life that I absolutely love. And then all of a sudden, I feel like I'm being called to up level in a way, which means I'm going to be taken outside my comfort zone. I'm going to be trying new things. I might fail. And I'm like, I don't really need to be doing all this. I could just keep doing things the way that I want to do them. And yet, there's a magnet, there's a pull, there's an attraction. And that has prompted me to think sometimes life, the universe, God has bigger plans for you than what you necessarily are comfortable with. And the question becomes, are you going to answer that calling or not? Are you going to allow yourself to be pulled in that direction, or are you going to try to interrupt it and repel it some way? Because at the end of the day, life can guide you in a certain direction. It can certainly attract you in a certain direction, pull you, but you have free will. You have choice. you can choose to go in the path or resist the path. It's certainly a choice. This reminded me of a conversation I had with Betsy. My girlfriend Betsy and I were walking the other day. We were kind of masterminding, and Betsy has a life coaching school. She is also a therapist. She does a lot of the same things that I do. We're in very similar fields of work. And so we talk about all these things that we're doing. And she was giving she was doing a class. And she said at the end of the class, she was like, this class, I felt like it wasn't me. It was like the Holy Spirit that came through me in this class. You know, it was like bigger than me. And Betsy is this devout Catholic, and she has this deep connection to the Holy Spirit. And she's like, oh my God, I just felt so connected to the Holy Spirit that when they emailed me to thank me for the class, I almost didn't even know how to respond because it almost feels like it wasn't me. And in the conversation, I said to her, well, you know, maybe the way that you respond is, well, I'm humbled. You know, I'm humbled by your comments, and I receive that because at the end of the day, Betsy, yeah, it may have come from the Holy Spirit, but you were the one chosen for those gifts. Like, you were the one chosen to deliver that class. Like, it came through you. Maybe you don't feel like it was from you, but it definitely came through you. So you get to receive the praise on behalf of the Holy Spirit. And as we're having this conversation, she says, oh, I heard someone say the other day that God gives you all of your gifts except one. I'm like, which one? She says, obedience. Obedience is the one gift that is yours. You get to decide whether you obey or don't obey. So when I said this to her about receiving the praise on behalf of the Holy Spirit, she said, I get to receive it because I am obedient. I obey. I don't repel my gifts. I don't resist what I'm supposed to do. I obey. And I have certainly seen her obey many times in her life. There was a time when her daughter had recently passed away, and she felt this calling to start a foundation for her daughter. And it was called La Fofi's Foundation. We were called to do some work. And every step of the way, she would remind me, like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. This is not mine. But I just feel like I'm supposed to. And she would just obey. Like, she was very obedient. She would do what she was called to do, even though it was uncomfortable for her and she was in pain and she was grieving, but she was always obedient. I have another friend of mine, Nikki, who is also very obedient, and she's a spiritual guru. You could find her on Instagram. She's incredible, Nikki Novo. And I remember one time she was having an issue also, and she was in tears talking to me. And she's like, I didn't choose this. This chose me. This life chose me. Like, I am supposed to do this work, and I just obey. But, this isn't the easiest path. Like, I could have been, in LA doing, magazine stuff. And she was like, on this great path, and she had this calling. She has a book called Soul-Led Living, and she talks about being soul-led. And when your intuition calls you get to respond to that calling. But that doesn't make it easy or less challenging or less frustrating. It doesn't mean that sometimes you don't want to quit. It doesn't mean that, you doubt yourself and you feel like maybe you're not the right person for this, right? Like, you have some imposter syndrome. And you feel like there's no possible way on God's green earth that I was the one chosen for this thing, because I certainly don't have the skill set or the credentials or the personality or the resources to be able to pull this off. There's a lot of that going on. And yet there are certain people that decide to be obedient and they answer the calling anyway. To give you one final example, I'll use the example of Michael Singer. He wrote a book called The Surrender Experiment. And the idea of the book is that surrendering to life's events rather than trying to control them is the key to a peaceful and harmonious existence. That's his premise. So Singer explains that he had some deep spiritual awakening, and he decided that he was going to conduct an experiment where he would accept whatever life presented, letting go of his personal desires and fears. And he used this example of like one time he felt called to go to Mexico. And I can't remember the exact story, but what I do remember from that story about him being called to go to Mexico was that he had this calling and he at first disobeyed. He was like, no, that's ridiculous. I'm not going to Mexico. But then he received 3 more signs. And I think by the 3rd sign, he realized that this was serious, like that the universe really wanted him to go to Mexico. And he, details the signs that he received at the time. They were significant to him. Maybe to you, you'd be like, that doesn't feel like a sign. But, we're all unique and we see what we need to see in our own lives. And we get signs and we interpret them however serves us, in our lives. So in his life, he saw these signs and he ended up going to Mexico. And as he goes by the story, that was just one example. There was other examples also, but each pull that he felt by life would take him in a direction, and that direction would lead him to the next direction and the next direction and the next direction, which eventually resulted in a beautiful, meaningful, very purposeful existence that he's had. He's had a very impactful life. He's impacted a lot of people. He's done a lot of incredible things. He has made an incredible amount of money. So he's really had extraordinary wealth and impact and influence. And according to the book, peace and harmony as a result of surrendering to life's flow, to surrendering to the energy that pulled him in certain directions and obeying even when he himself really wasn't sure that was the direction that he was going to take. Now, I do have to tell you, as I share this with you, that this is something I am currently and continuously studying and paying attention to. When I read that book, I was like, I'm going to surrender to everything. I am going to practice the surrender experiment. And I found that to be a very difficult thing to do. Very difficult, because at the end of the day, you do have your own desires and your own wants and longings. And I think the most difficult thing is to discern what life is pulling you towards versus what you personally desire. That is a difficult process. So I'm still in this process of figuring this out. So this episode really isn't about giving you answers. It's more about opening your mind to the possibilities of what this looks like. Yes, you want to be the kind of person that steps into the identities of the desires that you want to manifest. Yes, it's important to become the force that attracts the life that you want. And there's also the mystery and the magic of being pulled in a direction, even when it makes you feel uncomfortable, even when it may require you to grow a lot, where it may require you to struggle some, even when it's not easy, even when it moves you to tears. But my theory is that when you are the kind of person who is obedient to your higher purpose, the kind of person who answers a calling when you're being pulled in a direction, when you're the kind of person who's willing to go on the path, I feel like that's when you start magnetizing all of the blessings in your life. That is when you start magnetizing opportunities. You magnetize incredible relationships. You magnetize joy and magic and synchronicity, even though it's not always going to be easy. So for today, I just want you to go through the reflection process of thinking about a time when you felt nudged towards something you weren't actively seeking, or something that you felt called to obey. Did you follow the pull, or did you resist it? I want you to think about what keeps showing up in your life lately. Are you dismissing it or are you paying attention? Is something showing up over and over again? Where in your life are you holding back from something you may be feeling called toward? Are you resisting because maybe you're afraid or uncertain or attached to certain expectations and unfamiliar with what this could look like? Today, you get to consider what it would feel like to not resist the call, to take the next right step, albeit small, but a step in the direction of where you're being pulled, to trust in the magnetization of your life, to trust the path, and to surrender to the unfolding of life's events in your life with the trust that you are going to experience peace and harmony, because life is, in fact, rigged in your favor, and you are always in training for something bigger. That's what I got for you today. Hopefully this has given you something to think about, something to look around for, notice, pay attention to. It's not only about what you are trying to become in order to magnetize, but also what you're being pulled toward. What does in fact pull you, and why? These are questions you get to be asking. They're questions that help you live a life with intention. And when you live with intention, you're already on a path of creating a life that sparks bliss. I hope you guys have a happy, sacred Sunday, and may the magnets be so strong that they pull you towards your bliss. Bye, everybody. See you next week. That's it for today's episode. Thanks so much for being here. I am deeply, deeply grateful for this time to connect. If you're loving this podcast, I'd love if you could support me by subscribing, rating, and or leaving a review wherever you listen to podcasts. Those reviews help us so much. And if you know of someone who could really use a voice like mine in their head, please share this with them and let them know how much you care about their bliss. Now, if you are feeling called to dig deeper and really work on elevating your mindset, wellness, and your relationships to create a healthier, happier, and more meaningful life, then I invite you to schedule a 60-minute complimentary consultation with me. Let's have a meaningful conversation and see if working together is in our future. You can find the link to the calendar of consults right there in my show notes, but you can also connect with me on my website, carolinedeposada.com, or just send me a DM on Instagram at carolinedeposada. Like my friend always says, the project is big and you're a part of it. So thanks for being here.